Everyone loves a good sea monster story, don't you? Especially when they involve massive creatures with tentacles dragging screaming victims down to their doom. Delicious, and I mean that in both senses of the word. I love a good sea monster story as much as the next person. But do any of them actually have a basis in reality? Is there any truth behind the legend of the Kraken? Let's dive into this week's monster. The Kraken is a legendary enormous squid or octopus that lives off the coast of Norway and is big enough to wrap its tentacles around a ship and drag it down to the ocean floor. The earliest written reference to the Kraken comes from a 12th century manuscript written by a Norwegian monk named Benedict. He wrote of an enormous sea creature that would rise out of the water, lash its tail against the ship, and then disappear back into the depths. Another Norwegian text from 1349 describes how a fish so large it could sink a ship was caught near Bergen. And in 1660, an account published by the Danish physician and zoologist Thomas Bartholinus described a horrifying beast with 8 tentacles that emerged from the sea and attacked sailors. Over the years, sightings of the Kraken continued. In 1802, a British warship encountered a gigantic octopus while sailing through the North Sea. According to the report, the creature was big enough to wrap its tentacles around the ship's masts, and it took several hours for the men on board to beat it off with sticks. And in 1859, the New York Times published an article describing the capture of a giant squid off the coast of Nantucket. The squid's tentacles were said to be 30 feet long, and its eyes were the size of dinner plates. That same year, a British naval officer reported seeing a colossal squid that was at least 100 feet long. He described it as looking like a mass of white cloud, tinged with a sickly green, and having a most disgusting appearance. Now, obviously, these stories are terrifying, but what's the truth? Well, let's start with the idea that the Kraken is just a metaphor, a figure of speech used to describe particularly nasty storms at sea. After all, storms can cause ships to capsize, and they can drag people overboard. And some storms are so powerful that they can literally turn the sea into a whirlpool. However, the fact that we have descriptions of the Kraken dating back more than 1,000 years makes it unlikely that people would have been using a metaphor. If they had no other way of explaining what happened to them, sure, maybe they thought that a storm was a giant squid trying to eat them. But when they started comparing notes and realized that everyone else's storm looked pretty much the same, I doubt they would have kept up the misconception. So let's take these reports at face value. Is it possible that a giant squid could really drag a ship to its doom? Well, yes, it is. Giant squids do exist, although they're not as big as the Kraken. The largest squid ever recorded was 43 feet long and weighed nearly a ton. So I guess that means that the Kraken could exist, just not quite as big as the legends say. Right now, scientists believe that giant squids live only in the deepest parts of the ocean, where they feed on fish and the occasional unlucky whale. They're not known to attack humans, so it seems unlikely that a squid would suddenly decide to munch on a sailor. But wait, there's more. Squids have also been known to wash up on shore, usually after being killed by whales or sharks. So it's entirely possible that early sailors may have stumbled upon the remains of a giant squid and assumed it was the mythical Kraken. There are even reports of giant squid attacks on humans, although they're extremely rare. So maybe, just maybe, the Kraken is real, or at least it was at one point. What do you think? Let me know your thoughts below. And if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and leave a like, and as always, thank you for watching.